Hello.
Hello, and it's so lovely to see you again.
Good to see
Today,
you.
I've been guided to talk about how we ourselves
Yes.
prepare for these play dates that we've been
Yes.
putting out into the world. So, you happy to
Yes.
do that today?
More than happy. Let's
Yeah,
do it.
because I just think it'd be great for everyone to realize that most of the time you have no idea what I'm going to ask, apart from specific questions. So we've been doing these as palindromes on the same date, the 22nd of the month for every month.
Yes.
So to start with, you put out an invite to who's going to come along. How do you do that?
Okay. So, for those who followed along with us at the beginning of the year, yes, we started on the 22nd of January. I had the opportunity to come up and visit you, of course, and we did an Instagram live. And it's one that I still haven't uploaded to YouTube, but I will do that in the next couple of weeks. And that's when we got the idea to do it every 22nd. And so we've followed that through since then. And we had we had kind of begun in our journey just having these play dates and channel discussions with your guides, my guides, and it became so much fun that we decided. But there was so much amazing information that was coming through that we thought, well, this is meant to be for a wider audience, and this is definitely what they are wanting. So when there was a decision that yes, we're going to broadcast it to a wider audience, then there was a shift. It felt like more wanted to come through because
Yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't just about us. It was about who else was going to be connecting with a message. So it's come as there's each time there's three groups of
Mm.
beings, and usually the keepers of the keys that come first. And the keepers of the keys being the group of 12 healing angels that I work with who are connected to the libraries of light, and the Akashic records are one of those libraries. And they're not personal guides to me, like they can connect with anyone, so anyone can ask to connect with them. But I channel them, and they said they're my guides through the libraries of light, and that's how I first connected with them. And then sometimes it may be Ariy, your guides, and your guides are the only other guides that are channeled that are not my own.
Yeah.
And that's part of our soul sisters relationship that this came about. And perhaps we'll tell the story about how that came about because that's an interesting story too. Because we'll be chatting with them soon. And then at other times it'll be just other light beings or groups of guides who are wanting to come up. They're always connected with me because if I'm not connected with them, of course, then I can't channel them. So I've got keepers of the keys who are this group of angels who are connected with me. I also have Aria. It's a collective name, and it is what they call my divine collective. I was at one point calling them like my spirit team, and they didn't like that name. It wasn't just that they were guides; they were supporting the energy and healing work that I do with clients and through meditations. And so they're an eclectic group of light beings that include archangels, ascended masters, galactic guides, spirit animals, and they form a symphony of light, and that's why their name is Aria. And so that's why we've had a so far we've had archangels Michael and Raphael, we've
Yeah.
had Mother Mary, and we have had Mary Magdalene.
Magdalene, yeah.
And today we're going to have Saint Germain, and that will be released in a separate video. Each of them are connected with me through Aria, and so when we're going, oh yeah, we kind of have a play date. It's coming up. I just ask who wants to come through? It's always the keepers first. So
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, who else is going to come through? I know it's either going to be Ariy or someone from Ariy. And, we like
Mm.
the coincidence of that name.
Yes, another
There's a
connection for us. Yeah.
strong connection. And it's just a sense or a knowing of who will come through. So for this time, I was kind of, I had forgotten about Ari, to be honest, and I was like, oh, I'm scanning kind of through Aria, who's wanting to come first, and I was like, oh, this feels like a different energy, and then I was like, well, of course, because it's Ari, not from Aria, and then when I had that realization, it was yes, and a kind of like internal giggle,
Yeah.
and
That's Ari.
yes, and just that kind of knowingness that that's who wants to come through. And when that knowingness, it's like it's kind of feels settled in my body. So if it's like, oh, that's it, there's no this searching, it was just like the knowing has landed. And then it was like, well, who else is going to be coming through? And again, I started scanning through Aria, and it was like, oh, it's not an angelic being, feels not galactic, feels like a master, and then Saint Germain. And
Mm.
so again, there's that knowingness, and I'm feeling it right now, oh my gosh, this warmth. He's so loving and warm, and so there's this warmth. I can feel it all across the top of my back. It's like someone's put a heat pack on me, but warming me up from the inside out. And he just makes me smile, and but it's like I almost want to cry. It's just so beautiful, and so it's knowing their energy, and I think that is really how I work. As in a way, I call myself an energy intuitive, because through all the work that I've done and the meditations that I do, I become attuned to their energy signature. And for me, that's part of how I know them. So it could be part of their the colors that are coming through with their energy. But for me, more than anything, it's their energy signature. How does their energy feel? So it's multidimensional. It's I feel the heat, I feel that joy and that love and the warmth, and it's always different to everyone else, even though they're all of the divine. So
Mm.
really, that's for me how I feel. It's like the invitation is put out, and then I see who wants to come through. And if I was to say and put my ego on and say, no, Saint Germain, we want to ask more questions of one of the others that we already had, for example, it's not going to work, because
Mm.
it's
Mm.
a two-way communication, and just like any relationship, we've got to honor and respect who is wanting to speak and who is wanting to connect. So I think that's a longer answer to your question.
Yeah.
I tend to do that.
Yeah, but it does explain, like, and you put the call out only a few days before.
Yes, yes,
This is so it's like closer to the time, so that the
yes,
energy's spot on there.
yep,
And from that place, then you'll notify me of who's coming through within
yes,
24 to 48 hours.
yes,
And then okay, and then I ask you, do you have any questions? And
yeah,
usually you do have questions.
yeah,
Actually, we're doing this just before the 22nd of the 5th
yes,
um, um, offering that we're doing straight after this.
yes,
For the first time tonight, you've had no questions at all. So it's
none.
totally all
Oh,
coming from my
complete,
guidance.
complete blank.
Yeah. And I have a feeling that's kind of where they've been pushing us
Yes,
along, to have
I
that
think so.
separation. So prior to that, you would give me a couple of questions, and I would actually say that Vicky's question is, because when
Yes,
you're channeling, you're not Vicky. Vicky stands
yes,
aside to
yes,
allow whoever it is to come through, to let that energy through.
yes,
So I think that's wonderful. So I create the questions, and you have no knowledge of them until
no,
probably the replay afterwards. So
yes,
you pick up pieces. You've told me of what's been said, but because you're so deep in the consciousness and the
Yes.
connection that
Yeah.
you don't pick it all up what our full discussion is.
Yeah, let me say, because I get an energetic impression.
Mm.
I'm not completely gone, and I think this is the difference between, you know, trance mediums in the past. So those would go into a full trance
Trance,
and
yeah.
would have absolutely no consciousness of what was said.
Mm.
And what I feel I am, which is more a conscious channel. So I don't fully exit. I'm still here, but it's like I've gone to a corner of my consciousness. So I'm not, because I'm not engaging my thinking brain for the words that come through. They transmit energy to me. It's multidimensional. So sometimes I get images as well as feelings, and that's why they'll say Vicky's feeling X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
So there's a whole gamut. It's not just the words that come through, and on some level, and I don't know exactly how it works, my brain is choosing the words, it's translating words from the energy. And sometimes, and the keepers do this probably more than the others, but maybe because I channel them the most, they were
Yeah.
like, no, that's not the right word, that's a better word, or we can't find the right word for
Yeah, I've
this.
heard them say that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's not I'm not consciously thinking. So it's not like I'm thinking about what I'm going to say and I'm thinking from my perspective. So it's like I'm part in that corner of consciousness. Now sometimes, depending on a situation, I am more present and sometimes I'm less present. And depending on how strongly they need to come through. So almost it's like a blend. It's like uh,
It's like the human filter, I think's removed. Like,
yes, yeah, yeah. And I think I wouldn't ever claim that there is no human filter. I think at the end of the day, they're using my vocabulary,
yeah.
my frame of references, analogies that I'm familiar with, so
Mhm.
that it's going to come through me in a way that it would come through differently through another person.
Yeah.
But it's more a style of communication, hopefully, than an actual change in the message. So it's more communication style difference than a message difference, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I experienced something similar, and because like when I'm preparing the questions,
Yes,
I have two systems that work for me. And one is where ideas just pop in my head in the next even hour before we go
yes,
to live. So ideas will pop in and I'll quickly go, oh, okay, and I'll pop that down. And the other way is I consciously sit down, call in my guides, go
yes,
into my Akashic space and sit there and go, okay, what is a great question that will help
yes,
us tonight? And I go, oh, okay. And I trust in, and it comes out one word at a time type thing. And I just
yes,
write as the words come to me without putting thought into it or
yes,
judging it, going, well, that doesn't make sense. I try and
yes,
just go one word at a time, trust it, write it, wait for the
yes,
next word. That comes pretty fast, but
yes,
keep
yes.
writing. And then when I've finished, I read it back and go, oh, okay. So there's always
Yes,
one of those questions in there that opens up a whole other realm that I don't
yes,
even understand what the question's going to open.
yes, yes, yeah,
Yeah. So that pretty well sums up our process. I feel that that we go through to bring these channels, and
yes,
I hope everybody's enjoyed that, just to understand what does go into us doing this, to how we prepare and how it all
yes,
unfolds for everyone
yes.
to enjoy and learn from, hopefully. And
And I would say that the biggest thing that I take away from the channeling experience is the energetic impression
mhm,
from them. So that's what leaves the strongest impression on me is how they felt.
yeah,
And, it can take me some time afterwards to allow that energy to dissipate. And sometimes that's so strong, the memory of what was spoken is gone because it hasn't been filtered through my thinking brain. So you're
Yeah.
right. That's when I'm like, oh, I have to listen back
Yeah.
and see what came through. And you're right, in the channeling process, you can't know what's going to come through, and it is
Oh, or where it's
just
going to go.
one word at a time. So I am really grateful for these
Mm,
experience,
mm.
and to be able to myself listen back, because I think it's a real gift. Um, you don't often, being a channeler, get to hear your own messages or receive your own messages, because
Yes.
it's the most difficult to read for yourself, of course.
Mm.
So I think this is a real gift, and I'm so grateful to be able to share it with
Yeah.
you. And I'm grateful for you to hold the space for me to be able to channel that, and for coming up with these questions.
Yeah, and what you were saying there before, sometimes for me energetically, like I'm tuned in, but because I am focused on where we're going and what's,
Yes,
oh, that's brought up another question. I better write that down because the next little gem of beauty they're going to drop will make me forget the question I was going to ask. So I
yes,
quickly got to make a mental note or a quick note, and
yes.
so I do tend to miss lots of those gems, and sometimes I feel like I'm just rolling on to the next one. But when I replay them back, I'm like, oh wow. And quite often when I replay them back, it's in perfect timing that I need to hear
Yes,
the part that I've heard, the message.
I've had that experience too,
Yeah.
and I know you have prepared your questions. I
Mm.
haven't seen any of those questions, and
No,
then
you
how
know,
many
none of
times
them tonight, none.
and how many times do they answer multiple questions in
Yeah.
one go?
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. And it's probably around three subjects tonight. So I think everyone will be answering
Okay.
pieces of the same flow. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. So I think we might end this one right here and now,
Yes, yes.
and prepare to step into our actual recording for tonight.
Okay.
And just hope this is just let everyone know exactly our process,
Mm-hmm.
so can understand exactly where we're coming from, where the energy is coming from, and where we're going with what we're doing here.
Sounds good to me.
All
I
right,
can't
see you
wait.
soon.
Bye.